and then I'll begin. Hi, YouTube friends. I just started my stream on IGTV, and now I'm going concurrently on YouTube as well. And welcome to my studio stream. My name's Rachel Pollock. I am a costume crafts artisan, temporarily confined to home studio by the pandemic. And this is my open studio stream. So welcome. This is my home studio. I have several things planned for today that I'd like to do. Hi, Kim. See, Kim has joined on IGTV. And the first thing that I have planned for today is I thought about filming this as a video for my channel, but I know what's in this box, so it's not like a traditional unboxing where there's an area of mystery to the opening on behalf of the person opening it. I know what's in it because I bought this item and it just arrived, but I thought I would wait to open it in my stream today because it's something that I think several of you might be interested in seeing as well. So you may be familiar with a milliner who operates under the label Ignatius Hats. That's spelled Ignatius, like the man's name. And I have a hat that was made by Ignatius Hats here. This sweet little spiral straw, low-crowned John Bull top hat here, which I bought this one. Ignatius has an Etsy shop where he sells hats. He also has, I believe, a boutique. I think he's based in Virginia. I have long admired his work, and this spiral straw boater is a beautiful example of the style, so I bought it for that reason. But I also bought it because he is so very talented at this type of millinery, the spiral straw braid construction. And I've always admired the more adventurous hat shapes that he creates. But this specific one, I bought it because I love the style and I wanted an example to show my students at the graduate program where I teach millinery. But sad to say, I have to acknowledge the fact that one of the gentlemen who is behind the creative force behind Ignatius Hats has been diagnosed with cancer, and he is fighting it, of course. But I donated to his GoFundMe to support his treatments, but I'm on his mailing list as a result of buying this hat over here. And he announced a new initiative that he has started, or that they announced an initiative. I think there's more than one person involved in Ignatius Hats. Hi, welcome. I see someone else has just joined on IGTV. I'm in the middle of talking about this unboxing that I'm about to do as the first thing here in this studio stream, and Ignatius Hats, where one of the gentlemen who is, I believe, the head milliner there, makes all of the hats, has cancer, and I've contributed to his GoFundMe, and I have received an email from him that they're running a sale through Facebook, where every morning they'll post an image of a hat, and if you want it, you just comment and say sold, because they'll say when they post the image how much they're willing to sell it for. And his hats are normally they're a custom-made hat price point. You know, they're streetwear hats for contemporary fashion, and they range, depending on how complicated the design of them is, around the like $200 to $300 mark. And so, you know, I haven't bought a whole ton of his hats, but I do own that one. But then he put one up the second day of the sale that I saw it and I just loved it, and it was half the price that I expected it to be. So I said sold, and I got it. And this box here, you can see it great on IGTV or on YouTube, but you can't really see it that well on IGTV. So maybe I will open it here off to the side where you can still see that in the landscape view on YouTube, and it does not obscure my camera on IGTV. So this box arrived yesterday. Yesterday? No, actually. I actually think this box arrived Monday, but I got my second shot of the Pfizer vaccine on Monday, and I was super excited to have finally gotten to the point where I'm fully vaccinated, I guess, once 2 weeks have gone by after that second shot. But then Tuesday, I slept for 36 hours. Well, like I slept the night of Monday, and then literally all day on Tuesday. And so this arrived, but I wasn't in a position to be opening it. But I'm opening it now, and I will share this hat style, which I have only seen one photo on Facebook of it, but I was just it's a spiral straw hat, similar to that one that I just showed you, the John Bull Topper style, which I actually should put that somewhere besides just flinging it behind me. Riley, will you take that? My cat is 15 years old today. It's his birthday. There is my receipt. Oh, I have a lovely little image, a promotional postcard from them. It looks like it's a photograph of a hatter steaming a felt hat, it looks like, in an old-fashioned, like, Western-style hatter's workshop. And on the back it says, "Nice hat, thanks, let me know if I can do anything for you," from the folks at Ignatius Hats. I put the link to their website in the description of the video on this stream on YouTube. So if you see this hat, or you've seen this other one as well, if you decide that you would like to contribute to the Cancer Treatment Fund for Ignatius Hats Milliner, then you can click that link after this video on YouTube. It'll take a while for it to process, and then it'll show up, and you'll be able to see it show up in my main channel page, and you can read the description, and there'll be a link to Ignatius Hats, or you could just Google it. I mean, you know, it's an unusual name, but I spelled it Ignatius, Ignatius Hats. We'll put quite a bit of tissue paper in here, which is great for ASMR, not so great for hearing me well in this stream. Oh, yes! Oh, it's even better than I thought. I just really packed the crown with more tissue paper. Oh, it's so lovely. So, let me put it on. It's a summer sun hat, and it is spiral straw. And one of the features of this hat that I absolutely loved was there's an area of about 4 to 5 rows of a horsehair braid. Here you have like the central medallion of the crown that he's done, and then 4 or 5 rows of this horsehair braid that allows for airflow in the summertime when you're hot. You know, your head emits most of the heat in your body, and so it's why we love straw hats in the summer, and especially open work straw that has perhaps holes in the weave or in the braid itself, and so that aspect allows for airflow in the crown of this hat. Something else, if you've been on my stream for in prior ones where I was working on that straw Regency bonnet, you'll recall that the tip of that bonnet had an open work, lacy looking straw medallion to it, which, if you're new to the stream and you don't know what I'm talking about, on my YouTube channel, which is linked in my bio on IGTV if you're joining me there. And if you go to my channel, there's a video recently called "I Made a Regency Bonnet from Recycled Straw Braid." And it's all about how I spent several streams. I spent probably 6 months. I definitely spent 6 months working on that hat. But I feel that the most striking aesthetic feature about that hat is the tip of the crown of the bonnet is this lacy medallion that's created by straw braid work. and it allows for airflow in that bonnet, and it's also like just sort of artistically lovely. So he has here, in addition to this open work crown, which I mean, that I will admit, that's why I wrote sold in the first place, was I was like, that I want to look at how he transitions between one type of braid to the other, and I need a large brimmed straw hat for strolling in the summertime in my neighborhood to avoid getting sunburns and so forth. And I just sort of knew that there were other aesthetic elements to it that would be lovely because he is so talented and used such beautiful straw braids. But if you look, there's an ornamental sort of almost herringbone looking braid. Let me hold it up for the folks on YouTube here, and then for you guys on IGTV, this wider herringbone look braid that he has used as a hat band, and then it also sort of departs from that traditional band orientation to sweep up over the crown of the hat here at the side. So these are all like interesting ways to really, I don't want to say exploit, but play upon the nature of the medium in which you're working. I was really drawn to the multiple types and styles of braid that were used in this hat. But the element that I only noticed after I'd already agreed to buy it that I love is he's reinforced the edge of the brim here. And I'm always, when I create a hat like this, or even just woven straw hats from a hat body or a mat, I always struggle with how I want to reconcile the edge of the brim, because straw is, in most cases, a natural material that wants to splinter and crack. And even when it's something that's a bit more durable, like a polyester straw, or a Toyo twisted paper straw, or raffia, I still don't want that sort of fringy homeless hillbilly kind of edge on the brim. I mean, as a theatrical milliner, sometimes I have a character where we want the frayed edge of a straw brim, certainly. But I mean, if I'm trying to make a sophisticated hat for a middle to upper class character, or for myself, or to sell, then I struggle with different ways in which you can finish the edge of a straw hat. And what he has done here is really just a lovely way to do it. I can feel that it's not a wire. It feels like a fairly narrow diameter cord in here to add some weight to the edge of this hat brim. And then if you look on the inside here, he's created this second layer. It's sort of like if it were a straw hat body, it'd be folding back on itself, kind of like a bound edge or a hem on a skirt. But he's using very narrow strip straw here. And he's gone sort of back on himself here under the brim. And there's this sweet little decoration element over here where he's made this excessively long hoop that binds the edge of this, and then just taken like basically a double pinch in it to create this element that folds back on itself. And now it's a little ornament on the hat, which, you know, when I put it on, I mean, I suppose I could wear it balanced. You know, I always struggle with the idea of a balanced hat, because symmetry is something that I personally doesn't work with my aesthetic. And from a theatrical milliner's perspective, designers tend to choose symmetry for characters that are naive or regimented or uptight or conservative, or a member of some group like a military person, or I don't know. You get the idea. It has a visual connotation, at least in my industry, that designers tend to gravitate to. And those signifiers, I don't think of them as applying to myself. I don't think of myself as a terribly reserved or conservative person. So wearing a hat in a balanced, symmetrical way just feels awkward to me. But I do love, you're getting a better angle on this on YouTube than on, where you have kind of a view of the underbrim on IGTV and of the overbrim on YouTube. But I just love this little element of asymmetrical trim makes even the slightest tilt to the hat seem much more extreme, I guess, in the way that it's worn. I definitely plan to wear this very frequently this summer, and I like that I didn't know what the hat size measurement was, and as I've put it on my head here, it's a little larger than my head, but I could put my hair up inside of here and it would be excellent. And I've been growing my hair throughout this pandemic with the idea that someday I will have it long enough to do some sorts of updos that I used to do when I had longer hair when I was younger. So we'll see if I get there or if I get frustrated and cut it all off. But so I'm so terribly happy with this lovely hat from Ignatius Hats that I purchased as part of his Facebook page daily sale, selling off hats that I guess have probably been part of his online collection for long enough that they're willing to try to cut their losses or make what money they can from them. Oh, I should put a link in the comments or in the description on this YouTube video of his GoFundMe for those who might want to donate, just not buy a hat, but donate to his cancer recovery fund, cancer treatment fund, I'm not sure. Wish him the best of health. And in case you just don't want to avail yourself of this hat opportunity, or you're too late, perhaps he's done with the sale. But definitely, if you love his hats, you should hit that Facebook page and check it out first thing in the morning to see if they're still running that daily sale, to thin out their inventory and also raise some quick money for these bills, because it's clear from this hat that there are such lovely styles to be found there. And I hope someday to go visit his boutique and workshop. I know they're just in Virginia, so I've really just sort of like been an admirer of his work for quite some time, and pleased to help in this time of need and also own this beautiful hat and to share it with you all as part of this stream. So that was the first thing that I wanted to share with you today. The second thing, though, is it arrived the same day as this lovely spiral straw hat from Ignatius Hats. I have to give credit, actually. I have to give some preface to this and give credit to my friend Kim, who is watching right now, I see in IGTV on the chat there. Kim posted a picture to her Instagram of a hat that she had blocked from a type of straw that is new to me, called Sabutan, which you spell that Sabutan, and I had to look up how to pronounce it because my instinct was to call it Sabutan, but no, apparently the recommended pronunciation from Googling is Sabutan, and that is a type of straw which comes from a plant called the pandan plant that is primarily, I guess, harvested in the Philippines, but it seems like it's also native to other Southeast Asian countries. I couldn't find too much information about the plant itself, other than that it's woven into these mats that are then used for hats and bags and purses and placemats and floor mats and all kinds of stuff. But so Kim had this hat on the block. Well, she actually put up a picture of a couple of blocked hats, just blocked out, waiting to maybe water evaporate or sizing to dry or whatever. And one of them was this lovely multicolored straw that I was just so drawn to, and she described it in the image caption as this Sabutan straw. And I don't really stay on top of the as a theatrical milliner. I don't stay on top of the new trends in millinery materials, because what's trendy in 2021 is often not relevant to the hats that I make. You know, in this stream, I've made a hat that the style was from 1815. You know, like that's the opposite of the cutting edge of millinery fashion here. So I hadn't heard about this straw, but apparently it's sort of it. My impression is that it's newly introduced perhaps to the millinery community, because I couldn't find loads of it. You know, if you look around, millinery suppliers, many of them do not have it. I did find it. I actually have the business card here that I will share with you that came in the package with the straw itself. Be Unique Millinery, which they are based in Australia, but they have warehouses on multiple continents, including one here in, I believe it's Ypsilanti, Michigan, that fulfills their orders so they aren't paying like worldwide shipping from Australia to clients all over the world, which is a really smart business model for a millinery supply company, because there are definitely enough people making hats globally to support these businesses, so long as you can serve a global clientele. And I have bought things from Australian dealers in the past, but the shipping has always been not a handicap per se, but something that you have to take into account of like, okay, I want to buy this thing that it's $25 US, but I'm going to pay like another $35 just to get it shipped here, and I'll get it like 2 months from now. Oh, how sweet. Actually, these business cards came in with my package from Be Unique, but they also sent a sample of this rhinestone crystal trim here. That's like, it's reminiscent of what like prom necklaces and you know, drag queen necklaces are made out of, but I assume that is a product that they also sell that you can adorn your hats with. So I bought, when I looked at it, so like Kim had this beautiful Sabutan hat, which I see she's also saying, Sabutan straw is totally new to me as well. Be Unique seems to offer new things often, though, so I'm guessing it's fairly new to the millinery world. Well, I looked on Etsy because usually I can find somebody selling who's bought like a big job lot of something from China or the Philippines or wherever the origin of the material is, and then they're parceling it out and selling it to individuals. But nobody is selling individual Sabutan mats on Etsy right now. You can buy a lot of 50 different, 50 various color combinations and patterns for like $275, but nobody's selling it individually, which makes me think that like Be Unique is on the front end of this becoming like a millinery trend. And because I'm in this pause time where we're not doing a lot of work at the theater that requires the work that I do, I'm doing a lot of paperwork and I'm still teaching, but I'm not making a lot of stuff for performance, because we're doing performance, but they're like, you know, audio dramas and streamed on Zoom where, you know, the background is something created in green screen and people are, you know, limited to the clothes they have in their house, or, you know, we aren't doing the type of production that involves my work as a theatrical milliner. So I'm exploring all of this stuff, and if you've been to any streams recently, you will recall this is an offcut from a type of straw that I worked with recently in making a hat called buntal, Buntal. And buntal hat straw comes in mats. So they're these big round, looks like placemats or doormats or whatever. And I had seen those before. I will admit I had seen those before and wondered, like, how much curvature will they take? So I bought one. And if you look at this buntal straw sample here that I have, you can see, if I hold it close enough, you can see that each section of the weave is actually 3 thin little pieces of straw. So you have a lot of very, very skinny fibers in the buntal mat straw that you're working with. So it does take these really complex curves just because the fibers themselves are so narrow and they have a lot of play through the bias. You know, this is a bias strip of this, and I can shove it back on itself and pull it out strong, and you know, it's basically a curve, but I can pull it out and make it go straight. So anyway, that's quite manipulatable, has been what I've discovered about buntal. And it also doesn't crack as easily as larger diameter straws, in my experience. And so buntal is a type of straw that I'm really looking forward to future theatrical productions in which I might need to create straw hats, because I think it would be the best of both worlds in terms of a straw hat that you make for the stage, where sometimes you have considerations like somebody has to throw this hat down in anger every night, or somebody has to snatch it out of someone else's hand. Like the durability required of a theatrical straw hat means that we are often using like polypropylene straws where it's not really straw at all, it's extruded plastic. And that's fine, but there's something about the visual character of natural straw that has a lovely quality to it. And buntal seems like one that I will definitely make future straw bonnets out of, or at least recommend it to designers and hope that they see the advantage that I see in it. But I'm now at this point, I'm kind of digressing or away from the buntal mat that I bought. Oh, hey, Felix Weber has just joined. Felix is one of the milliners behind Les Incroyables, which is a brand out of Germany, a millinery brand. I'm so excited to have you join me. I'm talking about this wonderful new Sabutan mat that I have acquired from Be Unique Millinery. And when I hold it up, this thing is, it said 23 inches in diameter, but it actually feels a lot larger than that. But look at this thing. At the variegation in the color here. I have pinks, 2 different pinks and purple and cream. This is not remotely the wildest color combination that I saw images of when I started looking at Sabutan straw mat options. The one that Kim had that really drew me in that initial photograph was, I remember it had Mardi Gras colors. It was like purple, green, and yellow, and then also like red and pink or something. I mean, it was numerous rainbow colors that I just loved that one. Well, they were sold out of that one, so I bought this one that coordinates beautifully, coincidentally, with my hair. So I may make this into a hat for myself. I may just make it into a hat that, I don't know, I give it to somebody for Christmas or for their birthday, or just because I like them. Or I might put it into stock at work. And from what I can tell, just having not worked with this Sabutan mat, but having taken it out of, let me rewind. When this Sabutan mat arrived in the mail from Be Unique Millinery, it was rolled up in a tube like it was a poster or a piece of artwork. And so I took it out, and much like the buntal mat that I bought, might have also been from, no, it wasn't from Be Unique. It was from somebody one of these jobbers on Etsy that is just buying things and then reselling it in single pieces to the millinery market. Humboldt Haberdashery, that's who I bought the Buntal mat from. They didn't have Sabutan. Only Be Unique did, and not on Etsy, only on their own site. So when it came, much like the Buntal mat, it was rolled in this tube, and it's been in that tube the time it takes to ship from wherever it comes from. And in the case of this mat, it was Michigan, here in the States. And so it's got that curl to it. It's kind of like a fruit roll-up or a taquito or something. You know, it's rolled. It will unroll, but it's still got that curvature to it. So when this mat arrived, you imagine it curled up like a tube. I rolled it out, unrolled it onto my ironing table, and I steamed it out flat. And then I let it sit flat on my cutting table overnight, so that it wouldn't have any of that residual curliness for really talking about it in this stream today, because she has a millinery studio separate from her house, and I do not. And I don't think, I mean, we could, I guess, meet at the theater, but we haven't talked about the location. Wherever the location is, we're going to have a confab where we share blocks and we block on one another's blocks and just have a fun hat making afternoon. And I think I'm going to save this Sabutan mat until we're able to have that block party. Uh-oh. I had some connectivity issues there on both YouTube and Instagram TV. So I apologize. It's possible that it looks like we have maybe a storm coming, so I might drop out, I suppose. I don't know. But anyway, I'm going to save this mat, so I don't think that unless something extraordinary happens, I don't think that you'll see me blocking this into a form. But my initial impression of it, by just touching the pieces of straw, which I guess are actually leaves of this plant called the pandan plant, that grows in Philippines and other Southeast Asian countries. I think Indonesia is one. My impression is that it's hard to crush. You know, that it's hard to splinter. It seems like it has a kind of, like, I don't want to say, well, I'll say plasticity, but I don't mean genuinely plastic here. I mean that it has a pliability to it that is reminiscent of plastic in the way that raffia fibers are kind of reminiscent of plastic. Like, you can fold it, but it's difficult to rip it. And even if you puncture it, it's not necessarily going to turn into a torn hole. So that's my initial impression of the Sabutan straw mat here. And it does come in plain colors. You know, I found someone who was selling like sort of a natural color straw, which actually would be a lovely option for a theatrical context, because it's a fiber from a plant, so that means that it's dyeable with dyes that work on plant fibers like cotton and other types of natural straw. So you could buy those natural sort of white colored straws and dye them for any theatrical purpose in which you don't necessarily want this sort of psychedelic technicolor effect that's happening here. I mean, this straw hat, though, reminds me so much of the pattern of this Sabutan mat reminds me of that sort of intricate plaid wool that you see happening in mid 20th century fashion, especially in America and in Britain. You see these really interesting men's suits and women's tailored dresses and so forth in the late 50s and particularly the 60s, early part of the 60s, I guess. That I think that this hat body, well, I'm calling it a hat body, it's just a big circle, but I think you could make a period hat from this variegated multicolored straw that would coordinate really beautifully with some of those vintage or vintage inspired multicolor plaids from mid 20th century. That's kind of my thought right now, is that I will block it into, I have a it's like late 50s, early 60s, tall crowned Homburg with a very stingy brim that is, I'm sure it was a very sophisticated lady's hat in like 1961. And I think that I think that is probably what I'm going to use this for, but I will wait till I have my block party with Kim. Because maybe she has a block that I'm like, oh, this has to go on that. We'll figure it out then. I have set an alarm for today so I don't run over, because I do have another commitment, not right at 4, so the stream will go right until 4 p.m. But I do have another commitment that I have to be ready for at 4:30, so I do have to end right at 4. I can't, talk long. But that's on my list of things that I have taped just out of sight here. I've talked about my lovely new hat from Ignatius Hats, which has fulfilled all my dreams of what that hat was going to be, and made me even more excited about, or even more interested, I suppose, in acquiring a straw braid sewing machine. Because the straw braid hats that I have done, I've sewn as much as I could by machine, but I've sewn them on domestic sewing machines. Either the bonnet that I did right here on my machine here at home, or the sewing machine. I have a domestic machine that I've sort of repurposed into the millinery machine at work. It's one of the older model Bernina sewing machines, and I've created spiral straw hats on that before, as well as other kinds of braid, like not straw but horsehair braid and so forth. And it's clear, especially from how, let me pull this Ignatius hat back out again, especially from how regularly these very narrow braids have been stitched on that machine, that there's nothing like it. You can try to guide something through a domestic machine, but the level of control that he has been able to get on this hat, particularly where in the areas of extreme curvature here in the crown, it's just mind-boggling. And I've worked places where they had one of those machines before, but I was always at a level of assistantship that I was only trusted to sew in a grosgrain inside a hat with one of those. I was never entrusted with the responsibility of constructing the hat itself. I've only done this kind of work on a domestic sewing machine. So I am very interested in at some point acquiring one of those straw braid machines that are particularly engineered for sewing these types of hats. And most of them do a chain stitch, so that if you make a mistake, you can easily just pull out your stitching back to the point where you want to start over, which has always been kind of a frustration with sewing a straw braid hat on a domestic sewing machine, because if you need to rip out some stuff, then you need to get out that seam ripper and start very carefully picking it out, because unless you had a domestic chain stitch machine, then it would just be the manipulatability that was a challenge. I'm going on and on about a digression, and I really should just move on to the next thing on my list for today's stream, which is actually a personal project that I need to prep before I sew it on my domestic sewing machine that I was just talking about. And that is this thing that I'm unfolding here. We have here at this house, there is a sort of a secret side porch that is enclosed by walls of the house on 3 sides of the porch, and then it faces the forest that is behind our house. Well, our house is, it's actually, the forest runs along one side of our house and then around the back of it, so we're sort of tucked into the corner. And this secret porch faces the forest, and we're trying to get it into a shape where we can sit out there on a nice summer night and, you know, maybe have a cocktail or have friends over and hang out there. And my partner, Chris, has purchased a standing fire pit that goes in the middle of that porch. It's really lovely for such a thing. But this is the cover that goes over that standing fire pit. And we had a storm earlier this week that sucked this cover right off of it. Like it one minute it was there and the next minute it was blown up against the railing, or the furniture, I guess. I can't remember. It doesn't matter. And we were like, that's not cool. Let's see what we can do to salvage that issue. And I looked online because I thought about chain weight in skirts and in draperies, and how we often will put weights into skirts and draperies in order to control that hemline. And I was like, that would work for this fire pit cover, of course. So I found this steel ball chain online, and I purchased, I think it's like 16 feet of it, because that was the smallest. Like, unless you're buying it by the yard, that was the next size up. And I have an intention to sew a channel into the bottom of this fire pit cover and run that ball chain down the center of it like a drawstring, and in the hopes that it will stop blowing off, because I had created a same kind of cover for the meat smoker. So Chris likes to cook, which is lovely because I suck at cooking. But he also he has a grill out back. We ran a special gas line into this house, or onto our porch, in order to have a gas grill that was jacked right into the gas line for the house instead of getting propane tanks. And he has this meat smoker, which is about the same size as the fire pit. I mean, it's like, well, you can't see how tall, like, it's about 2.5 feet tall. That's like, what, 2/3 of a meter. And we had gotten a cover for it that I had then modified, because it's got a little sidecar on it that fill up with wood chips. And anyway, the cover for this smoker blew off in a storm, and it blew off into the woods somewhere. Like, one minute it was out there, and the next morning we get up and the cover's just totally gone. And this is a neighborhood where people don't really creep around to the back of your house. There's not an access road back there or anything. It would be very strange for somebody to creep up onto our back porch and have stolen just the cover of the smoker, and absolutely none of like the gardening tools or anything else. So anyway, after that prior experience of losing the cover of that smoker to the wind, basically. And of course, if we were not on a hill, I guess we could go trooping through the woods looking for it, but it's a very, very steep hill down to a ravine at the bottom of the woods, such that, like, I don't have the kind of mountaineering dexterity that I think would be needed in order to go out there and find that thing. So it's kind of just a loss. We're chalking it up as a loss. And I'm going to pin this channel into this thing, and then after the stream today, maybe before my 4:30, or maybe afterward, or maybe tomorrow morning, I'll sew my chain weight into it, and then we'll be able to cover our fire pit. There's so many other things that need to happen to that side porch before we're actually, like, socializing out there. I mean, forget socializing, before we're actually just sitting out there as people who live in this house. It's nice to think that socializing is on the horizon somewhere. I have had my second dose of the vaccine, so that was just Monday. Completely dead to the world Tuesday, but bounced back. And it is lovely to be one step closer to a time when one could have people over for dinner, even if it's just 2 friends or 4 friends. But we're not there yet. So, in fixing this fire pit cover here, it's really me indulging my high hopes for the future in which we will be able to once again invite people over. So I'm going to test the width of my channel against my ball chain here and make sure I think it's going to go in there. Yeah, that's good. So that's a project for post-stream. And then I see that I have just under 15 minutes left. It looks like I have, it's 3:47. So I have another, 13 minutes to my stream. So I'm going to try to complete the last thing that I scheduled for today's studio stream, which is actually something I look forward to completing very much, because if you're familiar with the term UFO as unfinished object, and that being a term that refers to, when you start a sewing project or a crafting project and you get part way through it, and then for whatever reason you stop working on it and it just sits there forever as an unfinished object. This next thing that I'm going to work on is a very long-term UFO that I, in fact, had forgotten that I had begun it, because it dates back to, I guess, there was a time when I was very interested in crochet and knitting, interlooping, basically. I was very interested in knit structures and interlooped structures, and I got really adept at crochet. I sucked at knitting. I never could do more than a stockinette stitch, like cable knits and things like that. I wasn't good at counting stitches and all of that, but I was quite good at crochet by the time that I had to quit it, because it exacerbated the repetitive strain injury that I have as a result of working at a non-union shop where I cut with a rotary cutter for 8 hours a day and damaged my wrist. And, water under the bridge. But I had, in my crocheting, my brief stint of crochet enthusiasm, I had begun, bring it over here, I crocheted several things: hats, scarves, gorgets, which are like kind of like dickies. They're like turtlenecks without the rest of the sweater. And this is a pattern that I believe it came off of Ravelry.com for this mesh tank top, really, I guess. And I crocheted the whole entire thing before I had to give up crochet because of my wrist, to the point that the only thing I had left to do was stitch the side seams together. So it was kind of like this mesh crochet tabard, which is a choice. It's not a choice fashion-wise that I would make now at this point in my life. And so if you can see here, I have clipped, I've sewn one side seam. I think I might have done that in an earlier stream, in fact. And I've clipped the remaining side seam together, and my hope is to tack it together during the remainder of this stream, which at this point, now I only have 9 minutes left. I'm probably not going to get that far, because it's not just whip stitching down the length of the seam. It is a series of tacks so that you maintain that open work mesh of the crochet structure. But I'm going to start it, and actually I'm going to start it at the bottom, because whenever I did this before, I got far enough to stitch the first tack. So I'm just going to continue here with that. And this, I guess, is kind of a time filler. I don't think that any of you are learning anything new about theatrical millinery or otherwise when it comes to me pinning up the edge of my fire pit cover or stitching the side seams of my crochet that I started in like 2008. But I think as part of, if the studio stream, I've been thinking about what is the studio stream here in 2021, now that it's not something that is useful for my millinery class to take part in. And I've been thinking that in one sense it functions like a vlog, because I do talk about what's sort of going on in my life and the world and for the theater that I work for, and crap, I have a knot. So it's kind of like a vlog, but it's also sort of meant to illustrate, like, it's whatever I'm working on in my studio this week. And the life of a theatrical milliner is such that sometimes you are working on a beautiful Regency bonnet out of straw braid, and sometimes you are just tacking together bits of crochet because that's the next thing that's on your list. So if the idea of the stream is to give a glimpse into what one does as a theatrical milliner, then I'm being true to that by having some sort of like mundane, less interesting projects that I work on, because for every fun, amazing hat that I get to make, I probably do about 25 boring dye jobs where I'm just trying to match the right color of gray or blue or purple or whatever. Or I rubberize a pair of shoes. Like, God, every show that I work on, I rubberize probably between 5 and 10 pairs of shoes, which is nothing exciting to watch. I mean, I guess unless you have like a kink for women wearing respirators and working with toxic substances or something. I don't know. I gather have an all company meeting tomorrow for the theater that I work for, where they're going to talk to us about prospective, hopeful ideas for what's going to happen for the 2021-22 season. That is not going to be officially announced until, I think, mid-June, possibly even July, because we don't really know, we won't know what the status of the COVID pandemic is with the vaccines being rolled out. We won't know how that will impact the contagion of the virus, the contractability of the virus. You know, we don't know. I've seen things about, you know, like Kennedy Center just released their schedule of shows for fall, where they're touring companies of Broadway shows that they're hoping to run in the Kennedy Center starting, I think the first one is on October 2021. And then I think the first Broadway show that I've seen announce has said they're going to open in December, reopen. It's one of the ones that already has a following. It's not a new work. So, you know, some people are proactively announcing those openings, but I think that my understanding is that my workplace already had to sort of confront the pros and cons of announcing a season and then postponing things and then canceling them and then announcing new things and then those things not getting approved by Actors Equity, and you know, all of that made this past season very confusing for those of us who work there, but also, and perhaps more importantly, for our patrons. That as I understand it, they're not planning to announce anything formally until much closer to the fall. But I do have a meeting tomorrow, which I have high hopes about. I'm really looking forward to it, where they're going to tell us what their strategies are, because they always have like at least 3 plans. Like, here's the plan where everything goes perfectly, here's the plan where things are kind of crappy but we're going to work with it, and here's the super crappy, we're streaming everything, or whatever, you know, whatever that's going to be. We'll have that in tomorrow's meeting. They'll tell us maybe what those ideas are, which of course nothing is for sure, but it is nice to be let in on these prospects of like, this is maybe what we hope is going to happen, and or this is what will happen if all of these factors are approved. This is what will happen if these things go right and these things go wrong. So I'm very much looking forward to that. All right, I'm stitch one more clip on this. Oops, I'm on the wrong end. Gotta go down to this end. Stitch one more tack on this and then call it a stream. Thank you for joining me today. It's I know it hasn't, I guess I started out strong. I started out strong with that wonderful hat from Ignatius Hats, and I think we continued pretty strong. It was nice to talk about Sabutan as a straw, and I think I'm really just loving the opportunity to experiment with these materials that I otherwise, you know, even if I bought them, I wouldn't necessarily have the time to make some experimental hats with them. You know, like for example, if you're familiar with a type of millinery straw called ginseng, I have had 2 different colors of ginseng yardage for over a decade, with the intent to at some point find the time to bust them out and just play with it. They are not here at home because you'll notice I have not done that in my studio stream in the intervening time because they're at work. And because I just don't get that time. Like in a normal year, you're making stuff. And when you're not making stuff, you're off contract. And you have other things to be working on, or you're doing another job. So anyway, there's my alarm, which means that that's the end of today's studio stream. Thank you so much for joining me, and I do this usually, unless I'm preempted by an unexpected appointment, then I do this every Thursday afternoon at 3 p.m. on both IGTV and YouTube Live. And then the videos post, sometimes there's glitches and they don't make it to one or the other platform. But I do have, my IGTV stream is a series, so you can go to my profile. My ID there is R.E. Pollock, and you can access it by looking at my YouTube TV or my IGTV shows there. And then on YouTube, I have an open studio stream playlist, and the videos, once they process, will post to that along with the live chat, which today I haven't had any live chat happening on YouTube. So there won't be any comments that show up. Nobody's really talkative over there today. But we've really only had a couple of, like, thank you very much, Kim, for coming. It's great to see you. And I hope that we are able to have our block party soon, because I'm super excited about that. I see that Trisha, Creative Costume Academy, has waved at me. She's just joined right here as I'm at the end, signing off, saying thank you so much for joining me. And I hope to see you all next week here on my stream.